So across the country, there's loads of guns that have pretty much zero value. For example, you can go to an auction and buy a gun for £5. But what do you get? Well, quite simply, you can get one of these. What's that in your pocket? Me, officer, it's nothing. It's just a Pedretti 410. No, it's not. It's a 12 bore. So this is what you get for £5 at an auction. I saw two of these sell at auction as a pair for a £5 in 12 bore the other day. In 20 bore they go for a little bit more. But yeah, I just want to share with you what you can get for this sort of money and why potentially they should be worth more, or what joy you can get from them potentially, although perhaps this is more romantic than practical. So Pedretti made these guns, or at least they are commonly known and referred to as Pedretti made guns, but they're actually made by them or not, I have not double checked. They are very simple. You have a little safety catch on top of a very simple action. To open, you pull this lever, it comes to about there, and it releases just a little, and then you just need to give it that final squidge to undo. They are non-ejector guns. You have a single bottom bite, and as you can see, you have an extremely steep catch. So there is never an issue with slamming them shut. I suppose it saves any proper regulation building them like that. So this is a 12 and it's marked up BSA. The 20 bore, interestingly, is marked as a Lincoln. Interestingly, or at least for licensing purposes, a Lincoln, but actually when you look at the gun on the whole, it has no markings whatsoever. It just says made in Italy, which it actually says on both of them. In fact, this gun, if you look really carefully, says NG. Zolli Army. That's interesting, and this one says nothing, but it does have a large maker's stamp just on there. Either way, these things date back to sort of the late 60s and early 70s when they first came out as a thing. BSA were outsourcing, as many people were, to these cheap, rather awful Pedrettis. No, they're not awful at all. They generally come, this has been refinished, so this is a better option, with very light pale yellow wood. The action has actually has a very pleasant pattern on the side, and a acanthus scroll with some lovely flowers on the side, but being rolled. For example, if we look at this one, you get a complete lack of uniformity across the board. For example, at the front here you have a very deep and a double stamp, and at the back you have barely any. But again, for a £5 for a 12 bore, or a £5 for a 12 bore, all the way, you know, the smaller the caliber, the more expensive they get. So a 410 one of these goes for like somewhere between 50 and 80 quid because it's a 410. What do you expect? There you go. Where do they sit in the market nowadays? I mean, I know very few people who shoot a single shot. I mean, a lot of people, certainly young people when they're starting out, go and buy one just, you know, to scratch the itch of owning every gun you can. You can go and buy one of these. And to be fair, if you go to the right auction, you're the right place at the right time, you can buy like 2 of these for a £5. You can buy them in like batches that gun shops are clearing out from the scrap pile for literally nothing, which is a very strange thing. And this is because who buys one? We live in a world, strangely, where people don't value this kind of thing because the type of shooting and hunting that was done with them is no longer. They belong to a slightly different time, or at least in the UK they do, that most people now, for example, for 30 quid could buy the side-by-side equivalent in engineering of one of these. And to have those 2 shots and to aspire to be that next level of hunter, to bring home more game, to have the twin barrels, to compete, to go and shoot sporting clays, which is what the majority of people actually do with their guns when they're starting anyway, because the ability to go and knock up hedgerows is so minimal now, given the fact that the world has exploded in population, especially, well, it hasn't exploded in population, but urbanisation and urban sprawl has expanded such that certainly in the southeast of England we're buggered for wild space and places to hunt. So they don't really have much of a place, which is sad because actually they should. There's something very pure, and it only relates mildly to my fascination and love of single shot rifles. There's something very pure about taking just this one shot gun out, in that actually it's a much fairer chase between you and the animal. That said, there's not a huge amount of fair chase sport to be had now. For example, you're not going to go walk up a hedgerow. And if you are, for example, going on a pheasant shoot, you need those 2 barrels so that you can compete with your neighbour in some sense. You need ejectors so you can shoot fast enough, potentially, to make the most of the opportunities you get. If you're out wildfowling, the opportunities now are fewer. So you maybe want that second shot and the ability to harvest a larger bag for yourself for the limited opportunity that we get, given the limited access that we have. If you're pigeon shooting, you need more shots than 1 to control the sort of numbers that we're suffering now, given that, well, it's hard to say without sounding cynical, but a large amount of pigeon shooting is divided between less people, and as such you'll get more shooting to yourself, as opposed to, I remember when I was a kid, getting a gun and going and sitting one end of a field because I'm invited just to go and sit out on someone else's permission, whilst they shot, just probably thinking back on it, just to get the pigeons moving around. But there is something sad that these things serve no purpose anymore. Very sad indeed. But that is just the way of the world. Most of these things will be sold probably to keepers and farmers as trapping guns, hedgerow guns, because they don't really make great starter guns because they kick like dogs, given that this weighs, I don't know, probably about 3.5 pounds. Trying to chuck a 32-gram shell through that is not going to be a pleasant scenario and will soon be off-putting to most new shooters. That mixed with the fact that you can buy a brand new auto for 300 quid that second-hand you can pick up for 100 quid, that working gun aspect's been shoved to one side for an automatic. And there you have it. That is a £5 shotgun. Rather depressingly, has no use whatsoever other than scratching a niche to fill a hole in the cabinet. But I do think that is sad, and I feel like some kind of miniature revival should happen, even though it would require a complete change in the way that land use happens in the UK. But it does fold in half, which is cool. There is also over and under versions of these that are about, but this isn't what we're talking about today. That is it. That is my short and romantic sadness of the £5 shotgun. Guys, take care. Thank you very much for watching. It has been brilliant, and we'll see you soon.